The story of this table starts almost 8 months ago. I was given a very shiny, very glossy, and stained table from a friend of mine. I had big plans for it, but I knew I had to prep it, so I sanded it down with 100 grit to really rough it up and then primed it with benzins or shellac. And then I went down to the beach in April, which was the start of a few months of travel. I was still doing my Amazon reviews along the way. Thankfully, I can do most of those when traveling. But in April, we also got to fly to California, and I got to see all 5 of my siblings while we watched our brother marry the love of his life. We took the kids to Legoland, and then almost 2 weeks after that, I went down to 38 Beach with my content creator and YouTuber besties to spend some adult time away. I then spent a week down in Alabama helping my mother-in-law recover from a stroke, and then it was time for weddings, and then a crazy fun trip to see our old friends at a reunion in Dallas, Texas, where they had an insane 170-foot slip and slide. I then traveled to the Haven Conference in Atlanta, where I got to teach my first class on the Amazon Influencer Program and shoppable videos. I got to see my besties again and meet some new friends, and then I came home to snuggle my babies. By then it was already summer, so it was way too hot to work outside, so we redid 2 of our bathrooms. I took the kids to Whitewater Center, ended up back at the beach with some of my local amazing friends here, visited Holden Beach with a few of my siblings and parents, and then finally wrapped the summer up of traveling, and I am back ready to pour this table. So let me introduce myself. My name's Kristen, and I do all things from furniture flips to home DIYs to Amazon reviews. This week's video is all about this acrylic pour over a table with a secret ingredient, and you're not going to believe what it is. Let's get started. Now, if you're a complete newbie to acrylic pouring, you've probably been taught to take any acrylic paint and mix it with Floetrol or a pouring medium. Well, I'm here to tell you that there's a new product, and I have fallen in love with it. It is Ready to Pour by Pouring Masters Paints. They have a ton of different colors and sets online. The one I'm using is jet black, silver, 24 karat gold, titanium white, and luster pearl white. So shake these up a little bit. This is the titanium white. I'm going to skip over this boring part. Now I'm pouring these into cups to then pour on the table. Well, the only reason I used cups before was because I had to mix them with the Floetrol, or otherwise known as flood, to get them ready to pour. These are ready to pour, so you actually can skip this step. I realized it as soon as I poured it on the table, and I'm like, this was stupid. I literally could have just poured it out of the bottles and had it ready to go and not wasted this time. So skip this step. They are ready to pour. Give them a little shake and make sure that everything is running smoothly, and begin your pouring. Your pouring surface needs to be completely free of dust, so I have a fan blowing out from my garage, and then this space in here I have blown clean so that there's no dust particles running around. Now, I do spray the walls sometimes with water. For this one, because there's so many colors mixed in, I didn't really feel the need to. There wasn't a ton of dust in here, but if you have a dusty workspace, spray your walls with water so that you don't have dust floating around your table. Now, my client sent me some inspiration for this table. The base of this table needed to have the majority whites, and so we wanted a little bit of sheen with that luster white that's pearl that has a sheen to it, and then the titanium white is our biggest base color, which is why I got the huge jug of it. For some acrylic pouring, you can mix in some silicone to give it some bigger cells. I didn't want that look completely on this table. And there I'm putting in the silver, and I'm going to be mixing this by hand all together. This isn't going to be a run off the table type of pour. I'm really just going to make it look real messy, but kind of marbly. Using a very light touch and wearing nitrile gloves, I'm going around and just mixing the paint and making sure that it covers every bit of the surface. Sort of mixes together, but if I ran a paintbrush through this, it would completely blend the colors, and I want to keep them somewhat separate and somewhat messy. Even without silicone, these paints had a reaction to each other and they looked really cool, had some silicone markings in them. I did try an experiment and see how it would be with letting this flow off the surface from one end to the other. Now, this is how acrylic painting typically goes, with letting it run off the side, but I just more wanted to even the surface out. Doing this by hand created a very uneven surface, and I knew somewhat the paint would level, but I did want it to just flow a little bit more from one side to the other. Now here comes the fun part. We're going to use our main colors for this, which is the jet black, the Rustoleum metallic spray paint, and that 24 karat gold. I do want this black to look more marbly, and I do want it running a little bit more from side to side, but first I wanted to experiment with the Rustoleum metallic gold spray paint to see how it was going to lay on the surface and flow with it. I then layered it with that 24 karat gold ready to pour paint so that it would give it a little bit more of a sheen and a pop. You really can do this however you want and you see fit. Now, I picked up the table and I started to let the paint slide around, and the Rustoleum metallic spray paint did exactly what I wanted. It started to group in some areas, it flowed over the acrylic paint in some other areas. It just looked really, really cool. For this part in the process, realize that your paint's going to be dripping off the table and underneath, so we're going to clean that up afterward, but for now, just let it flow. It's going to get messy. It is so much fun. This is at 10 times the speed just to show you that it does take a while to get this how you want it. This has an open time of so long, so really you can play with this paint. It's going to need to dry for the next 7 to 10 days, and so it's going to stay wet for a while. So you have time to move things around, take a putty knife to it, take new paint to it, add some more Rustoleum spray paint, whatever you need to make this table look like you want it to. I took a small silicone plastic knife and went through and just spread a few of the bands around if I wasn't happy with the way that they looked. But this really broke up the spray paint, and so I don't suggest doing this if you have a lot of areas that have the spray paint on them. If you did not lay tape or anything underneath your surface, which I did not, then you're going to want to get it up higher on an area so that you can go through with a wet rag on the bottom and make sure that you clean any paint off. One of the best purchases that I made last year after I had my back surgery was this hydraulic lift. It allows me to get my furniture way up above so that I don't have to be constantly bending over. When I got it cleaned up underneath, I took some Rustoleum gold metallic spray paint and went up through the edges so that the edges looked finished. And then I went through with a black spray paint to get where the bands of black could have run off the side. And that's it, you guys. It's done. You just get to let it sit there for 7 to 10 days while it dries, and then you can decide what you want to put on the top of it to give it a clear coat. Now, it's not going to dry this shiny, and so the clear coat that I'm going to do, that I'm going to show you next week, is the epoxy top that's going to make it look so shiny. It's going to bring out all the shine and all the sparkle of all of that gold and luster white pearl, and so stay tuned for that. I will see you guys next week.